Welcome to the Concussion Fix podcast, where we lift the veil on concussion recovery and empower you with real answers to real questions about persistent concussion symptoms.
Welcome to the Concussion Fix podcast. I'm Nikki Fraser, and I am joined with Dr. Hrkal and Dr. Marshall. And today we are going to review one of the questions that we had on our Q&A. It was a mom who came on to ask us questions on behalf of her child. Her son is a late teen, technically an adult at 18. But we do get parents that do come on often, and sometimes the child is around 10, sometimes they're in their early 20s, sometimes they are even in their 40s. So then it becomes a question of, when does a parent step in? When should a parent step out? That accountability is what we had a lot of discussions afterwards about. So we thought it would be a great topic to have for today's podcast. Maybe start with Dr. Marshall. What are your thoughts when parents come on and start asking all of these questions?
I think it's good depending on the age of the child, right? If we're talking about a young child, let's say, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, a lot of the stuff that they're going to have to do is going to need to be supported by the parents. And so it's kind of like a partnership where they both have to be present. They both have to try to understand. The parent may have to, pause a lesson and say, do you understand what they mean there? And maybe explain it in a different way. When we get to diet and, implementation of certain aspects, the parent's going to have to be there to kind of, support it. In the case today, this mom, we've seen her a couple times, but we don't often see him, right? And so my question was, where is he? Like, why are you doing this? And of course she's being a very good mom in the sense that she's like, well, we're trying to limit his screen exposure. We're trying to preserve his capacity. We don't want to flare him up. So I'm kind of handling this so he can focus on the recovery side of things. And it makes a lot of sense, right? That's, as a parent, we want to be able to support our children in that way. But unfortunately, when it comes to concussion recovery, it's you kind of have to take your own accountability for it, and you have to kind of do the things to increase your capacity to be able to tolerate, right? So if we're going to avoid screens as to not flare you up, you're never going to be able to tolerate screens, because avoidance is not a strategy, right? You're never going to become a good runner by avoiding running. You're never going to be able to lift heavy weights without trying to lift heavy weights and gradually progressing the weight that you're lifting. And it's the same situation here. So unfortunately, what seems like the right decision oftentimes is often counterproductive, right? Because especially with kids, especially that age, those teenage kids, having a mother tell, okay, here's what you have to do. That kid's going to be like,
different. They just tune it out. They tune it out.
No. But if they're hearing it right from the horse's mouth, they go, okay. It's almost like kind of, in that situation, it's like mom needs to step away completely and basically just ensure that she's allowing him to do it and giving him encouragement to continue with it, and, having him re-explain it to her. Rather than her explaining it to him, what might be a better solution is having him consume some content, figure out what he has to do, write it down, take notes, and then say, okay, I want you to come back to me and teach me. Because then you really understand it, and if you have to teach us, that might be just a better solution. But I think that it's a challenge. I mean, once you get into adulthood, some parents are still involved. That they need to completely just let their kid, handle that. You have to take accountability.
I understand why they do that though, Cam, because
100%.
I think that a lot of kids, both you and I have young kids.
Too many kids.
Yeah, obviously we want the best for them. And I think when a parent sees their kids flailing and struggling, and many times there's a lot of mental health challenges that are also involved. And so there's a degree of depression. So this particular member that we were talking to, their son was a high level athlete. And of course, they sustained a concussion. All of a sudden, the identity that's still being developed through their teen years disappears, often extremely, sometimes traumatically and overnight. And so then there's a large kind of mental, emotional challenge with possibly depression and anxiety. And so the parent is trying to solve that for them. And I think if what we understand about motivating people to make change, all the things you said absolutely, Cam, are bang on. So I understand why a parent tries to come in and do that for them, but there has to be a handoff for the actual young adult to start being able to implement this themselves. Maybe the initial introduction into the course, because they're in a state of depression, could be that the parent helps them initiate that. But then the handoff has to be like, okay, we're doing this course, we're starting to change your diet, we're starting to talk about mindset. Maybe they need to go talk to a mental health professional to help them move through those initial stages. Maybe there's a medication aspect to things if there's a lot of depression or anxiety. But then there has to be the trade-off where the parent no longer is basically just continuing to do the course for them, and the actual kid needs to do something. So we're talking more about young adults, people that are able to take accountability, where, if you're helping somebody that's maybe 12 years old, they don't really have the capacity to navigate an online program and deal with all these doctors. So of course, there's a lot more hands-on. So I think I want to make sure we're clear about this age range. But as somebody gets older, it's definitely our experience that those ones that are successful, they're the ones that are actually now actively participating in their recovery process. They're the ones talking to doctors. Like, I don't know about you, Cam, but you've probably seen kids. I've seen people that are hockey players that are playing at a very high level, but the parents are like basically still doing the talking for them in the visit. And I'm like, I want to talk to the actual athlete, the person that's suffering from concussion, but they're doing half of it and they're kind of quiet and sitting there.
Yeah.
I find that those are the ones that struggle the most.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I have a mutual patient.
That's right. Yeah. We're thinking of the same person.
That.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Same thing. And like, here's the way to think about it. It's like, no one can get you better but you. That's so true. As much as like you're a parent and you want to kind of help as much as you can, like, you doing the program is not going to get your kid better. Your kid has to take that on, right? The only person that can help you recover from a concussion is the person with the concussion. That's it. Right? It's all just things you have to do.
Parents do the program. And so I think it's still good if they do it, though.
100%.
Right? I get it. But then the kid has to go in and do it themselves. Not like, hey, I did it, and then now I'm going to like give it to you. In my opinion, that's not going to work very well.
Right.
You have to do it so you know what it is. And then you say, okay, now Johnny, whoever your kid is, you know what? You have to actually go and watch the modules and you have to implement this. And you know what? I'll help you with the cooking because maybe you don't have that skill set. And I can help you set up some appointments. Maybe you don't have that skill set yet, but you have to learn about mindset. You have to learn about what type of exercise you need to do. Do you have a question? You can go and ask Dr. Cam about that question rather than me always being like, well, on behalf of my kid, not a good sign.
It's the same thing with like schoolwork, right? Like, if a kid comes home with an assignment, like, there's this drive for parents to like, want to help. And what ends up happening is the parent does it. And then the kid just lets the parent do the homework assignments and goes, whatever, like, my mom will help and she'll basically do the whole thing. And then next thing you know, that kid's, that's not going to help them. That's not helping them at all for like the rest of life when they're going to actually have to do things for themselves. You take away that failure, you take away that struggle, right? They have to struggle through. That's like the only way out of concussion is through it, right? Like, we say things like this all the time. So, someone else going through it doesn't help you go through it. You have to go through it. Unfortunately, that's just the way it works. And so I think that's the challenge from a parental's perspective. Almost the way to do it maybe would be like, okay, let's say you're my 18-year-old son here, Paul. You and I are going to sit down. I'm going to kind of just sit in the background just to kind of listen because I want to know too. But let's go through it. And then, okay, let's say it's a module talking about, mind body connection or something like that. At the end of it, you have a discussion. What do you think about that? Like, do you think that like resonates with you? Do you feel like, do you see how that could be powerful, or like, what do you think? And then now you're just having a conversation with your kid about,
What if the kid's like, "Oh, that's so stupid, mom. Like, it's not in my head. Like, I hit my head, and something's wrong with my head, right?" And so,
yeah,
like, I can just see like the 18-year-old like getting frustrated and throwing a bit of a tantrum, and because
yeah,
we've seen it,
oh
and
yeah,
so then now the parent is like, "What do you do now?" Back to you, Cam, for role
yeah.
playing.
Well, yeah, I know. Like, I think that, um, it's always a challenge when there's a parent and a kid involved. That's why I don't think it's a good idea for the parent to do the program and try to teach to the kid, because the kid's gonna be like, "Oh, shut up, mom." Like, that's I don't, you know,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's challenging. This is where I think like having additional professional support
totally.
may be the way to go too, right? So I think you could sit down with your kid, do the first couple modules, have that discussion. If it becomes a fight, then it's going, okay, we need to like involve some additional support here. But yeah, I
Like,
mean,
So at what
it's an
go
interesting
ahead,
I was
go
topic.
ahead.
I was going to say, so at what age do you think that kind of shift starts? Because I mean, I could see, we have members who come in, parents as members for their 7, 8, 9 year olds, who for them, absolutely, they would have to go through the program. I think that would be almost too young for, especially a 7, 8 year old to really understand what's
They're
going
not going to
through.
sit there. The 7, 8 year old's not even going to sit through
Ex-
a minute of it,
no,
right? In that case, it's
exactly.
the parent doing it, trying to use that knowledge to help the child.
Exactly. But at what, and I know every child's going to be different. Everyone has different learning abilities and that, and a 12-year-old might be even more mature and able to take things on than a 16-year-old or vice versa sometimes. So I know there's no like clear-cut age obviously, but where would you guys think that that shift kind of starts of partnership, both doing it together to, okay, now, the child, you're at an age where you need to start doing these things.
I'd say anywhere from like, you know, probably anything under 14, it's kind of parent doing it. If you have a mature kid, they could probably get involved too. And then probably partnership from like 14 to 16, and then 16, 17, you could probably start phasing into like they're doing it and I'm just a background support person.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I have a 12-year-old, and they're already getting assignments that they have to like do stuff on their own and use a computer, for example, to like get on their Google Classroom and start doing stuff. So if you have a child that's able to handle that, especially sometimes their state and their mindset does change after they sustain a concussion. If they have a constant headache, I've had kids in that age range where they don't understand the bigger picture of that they're in pain, and they have to kind of lean into that pain, lean into that discomfort. And that's, I think, really the rub with concussion recovery. And this is great for anyone that's listening, is that I love what you said. You can't heal a concussion on someone else's behalf. They have to do it on their own. And that means uh, coming to terms with the fact that they're going to be uncomfortable before they feel better.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids are stuck in the, why is this happen to me? I hate everything around this and I want nothing to do with it. And I'm just kind of like in this denial anger mode, if we're going to use those kind of stages of grief as like
Yeah.
a bit of an analogy. So
Yeah.
I find them very challenging to work with, because parents often are frustrated, Cam, that they don't really know where to go,
Yeah.
because their kid is stuck in this like, I'm just so angry at
Yeah.
that I have to even handle this. Where
Yeah.
the flip for, I think, adults, they can kind of make that shift into, I'm pissed off I got in this car accident, if we're going to use that example, or I slipped and fell. Crap happens, accidents happen. Now, what do I have to do to get better? They're able to kind of flip over and be like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
now going to get in problem solving mode, and I'm going to
Yeah.
stop thinking about the woe is me. This is unfair. Look at all my friends. I just want to go out and have fun and be on my phone all day type of mentality.
Yeah. I think that's the trickiest part. Like, that's the sense I get from this particular case, is that it just kind of like
You're right.
maybe a bit of depression, maybe a bit angry, um, just wanting to maybe kind of like put it all away, like pretend it's not happening kind of thing, rather than like sitting down to do the work. And,
Mm.
obviously you're like, this is like, you're 18. This is like, your fun times with friends and going to parties and doing all that stuff. And now you're like feeling like crap and you can't do those things. Like, obviously you're going to feel, that's going to be a burden. So
Takes a mature person to be able to kind of be like, okay, so what do I got to do to get better? And I'm going to
yeah,
have to kind of sacrifice that perspective or that kind of like lifestyle temporarily to be able to recover. The good
yeah,
news, Nikki, I know you know this because you talked to a lot of people that are in our program. I think kids are very resilient and they do get better usually quicker than adults. I think the real challenge often becomes when adults have, they've gone through decades often of becoming more dysfunctional. Their tissue is not as responsive. Their hormones now start coming into play. They're not nearly as resilient as kids. So I find kids can recover really, really well. um, and I think as a parent you can act as an advocate and as a guide, but you can't do all the steps for them, and somehow that is going to translate to the kid, because like the reality is, like, I coach high level sports. I'm also a clinician. When I say something to my kid versus another coach says something to my kid, he sometimes listens to that other coach more than me, because they just don't want to
yeah,
hear from their parents, and it's just a hierarchical authority factor.
yeah,
So as much as we love our kids, we can't like love them through concussion recovery. Oftentimes, a clinician has to give them the tough love of being like, "No, you got to cut out all bread for 6 weeks because we know you're sensitive to it and it's probably causing inflammation."
yeah.
As a parent, they're like, "Oh, mom, you're such a killjoy," and all this stuff. But if a doctor says, "Well, doctor so and so said you have to do this," so that's why like bringing people in to be part of the team is actually very valuable from even a psychological perspective, because it gives that kid another layer of authority that's not you, that they may say, well, Dr. Paul said for 6 weeks, let's cut out gluten. It's not mom saying this anymore, it's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's bang on right there. Like, even just like with my kids, let's say we're playing baseball or something and I'm like, you got to keep your elbow up, and it's like, I am, And, but if another coach is like, hey, keep your elbow up, they're like, oh, okay. So I think you have to separate
Yeah.
the parents from it. You know,
And that can be hard as a parent, though. A
100%.
comment that you said earlier made me think too of, it as a parent, it breaks your heart seeing your kid hurt.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's physically, emotionally, and with PCS, it's invisible. So it's like, you can't even see the cast that's there as a broken leg, as an example, but they're in pain. You see the headaches, you see the pain that they're in, and it just breaks your heart as a parent. So you want to do everything you can to help them. And that's where sometimes it's not tough love, it's loving them enough to say, okay, and especially knowing that you have to lean into the discomfort. Again, that's like an extra layer as a parent of like, oh God, watching them hurt. It hurts you almost. But it's the best way to love them is to help them recover, is to allow them to take those steps. Just like when they were babies and learning to walk. My God, the amount of times and bruises my kids had from learning to walk, they would have never learned if you just continued each time they fell to pick them up. This is
Yeah.
the same thing. They have to
Yep.
learn to walk through their recovery, and they might stumble, but we can't pick them up every single time.
Yeah, what's interesting too, just like bringing like a research angle to this. If you look at like concussion recovery in kids, younger kids, even like flipping back to that, one of the number one predictors of somebody who's going to have a prolonged recovery after concussion is the anxiety level of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
So having a
Well,
parent, that they have rating scales for like helicopter parenting, the parents that are like overly involved, the ones that talk for the child in every visit, those are kind of highly anxious traits. And what you find is that those kids do worse because of the parental anxiety around everything, right? So, you kind of have to just chill a bit, and, you know,
That's a great point from a research perspective.
Yeah.
What would you say, Cam, would be our like top 3 to 5 recommendations for a parent that's listening to this that they can kind of help their child navigate this through the best? What do you think? You start, and then I'll finish.
I mean, it's tricky because like what age are we talking about? Let's take the teen years because I think that's
Yeah.
the transition that makes things a little bit difficult. So I think number one is to find the supportive tool that's going to help them. Like I would recommend, obviously, being the concussion fix, I would recommend that everyone with PCS goes through the concussion fix because
Yeah.
it has everything there that you need in a structured order, step by step, to kind of give you all the pieces. So having a structured program in place is good. And then as a parent, I think you're there as a support because it's important for you to understand too, right? Nikki, you were talking about having, the pain and the discomfort and watching your child have to kind of push into that. But if you don't understand why they're doing it,
Mhm.
you're going to maybe have some anxiety about that and maybe be like, are we sure this is the right thing? Have we looked at these guys' credentials? Are they legit? Like, they're telling you to do these things, but I think it's making you worse. You have to understand why they're doing it too. So I still think the parent needs to be there to like,
Yeah.
or watch it on their own time. I don't care, but they have to know what the kid's doing and like be there as just like a sounding board or support tool. And then I think number three, that if you are having pushback on things, it's like, okay, let's say we're at the mindset section, we're having pushback. I think it's like, okay, we need to maybe look at getting a therapist. We need to look at getting a professional for this because my kid's combative, they're resistant to this, but I feel that there's something going on here and I want to make sure that they're getting professional support. So those would be kind of my three. It's like have a overarching framework, know what your
Mm-hmm.
plan is going to be, and I think something like a concussion fix would be a huge bonus because you can do it together. It's 24/7. You can do it when you have time. It's not like you have to schedule appointments around school and activities. It's just there. And
Yeah.
then number two is like you're a supportive angle. You have to kind of be involved in the situation as well, but you're not going to do it on their behalf. You're not watching modules without them. You're going to watch them behind them and talk about it, make sure they're actually listening and paying attention. And you have to put it on them. I can't recover for you. Right? I can't fight your battles for you. I can't do your homework. I can't come in and take your tests for you. I can't learn how to skate for you. You have to go and do that. You have to fall down. You have to do the work. Um, and then yeah, number three is probably professional support. So those are my three that I'm thinking right now off the top of my head.
Yeah, what I would add to that, and maybe I'll zoom out even further than you did, Cam, because those are 3 excellent points. I agree with all of them. Is that when it comes to concussions, in my experience, I think parents largely don't really understand concussions very much, like at all. So, one of the first steps is get yourself educated. In our opinion, and obviously we're biased, the concussion fix program is absolutely the best possible thing you can do to understand concussions better. So, if you have a child that, let's say, we'll use a sports injury, they've got a concussion, they're extremely symptomatic, and you've gone to your doctor, you've checked all the boxes to make sure there isn't any sort of emergent situation, you've gone to the hospital, and they said, you have a concussion, go home and rest. So right off the bat, that's bad advice that you've been given. So you want to actually start being proactive and, not keeping them in a dark room. So allow them to have a little bit of screen time, uh, and start to move your body. So like moving sub-symptom threshold, that's I would say that's one of the best first steps. And I know that seems super basic, but parents don't really understand that because they still defer to their primary care provider right away and be like, well, their doctor said that, and so I'm going to do that. The reality is, in the research, as Dr. Cam knows, like most people, including your doctor, don't really know concussions. And so you're still getting a lot of not great advice. Um, in order for you to get more educated, that's where I think a program like the Concussion Fix really comes in. And also another big thing is that, start working with healthcare providers. A lot of times I find after an acute concussion, they see their family doctor, they tell them to go home and rest, and then you get into this waiting game of like, I just hope all this just goes away. And the kid is still hopeful for that because you've been told by your doctor who you trust that it's hopefully going to go away. At what point in time should you start becoming proactive? And in my opinion, and I'd like to hear what you think, Cam, but in my opinion, if symptoms aren't really substantially getting better within 2 weeks of that, then you should start, looking at, okay, so I'm going to go see my chiropractor. I'm going to go see my physiotherapist. What do you think about that, Cam, in terms of that timeline? Like, I'm talking about like the parent with a kid that's been concussed. At what point are you starting to take it up a notch?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's in line with what the research says at
Yeah.
this point. Like, for example, exercise, like subsymptom threshold exercise, the research shows you should start that as early as 2 days after injury,
Yeah,
right? To
that's right.
actually speed your recovery. So, like at our clinics, for example, like with complete concussions, like we're doing treadmill tests in the first week after your injury, right? If you're still symptomatic, we're going, okay, let's see if autonomic is involved. Let's get you on the treadmill. Let's figure that out. And then in terms of rehabilitation, the current recommendation is if you're still symptomatic in 10 to 14 days, you should be starting rehab. And it's like
Rehab.
visual, vestibular, whatever. But I mean, we start earlier than that because we're giving diet advice right off the bat. We're, focusing on sleep right away. We're doing sleep hygiene. We're doing education to try and reduce any anxiety around concussion because there's this huge anxiety around concussion now. Anytime
Huge.
the amount of parents that come up to me and they're like, oh, do you think he has a concussion? And I'm like, don't worry about the concussion. The concussion is not our concern. What our concern is if there's a brain bleed, a skull fracture, swelling, and something. Those are the red flags you want to look for. A concussion is fine. All you have to do is take care of it, right? Just go see somebody that knows what they're doing, and it's like a couple weeks, you're better. Like, it's fine. It's when you're doing the wrong things or getting the wrong advice or doing prolonged rest or, Googling things and seeing all these horror stories that you start to kind of internalize that. And next thing you know, you have PCS. So
Right.
concussions recover really quickly if you
If
know
you're
who,
proactive, I
if
think
you
if you,
see, yeah, you need to kind of get going. You don't want to sit around because then that's like how everything just falls apart.
yeah, I would say that's my biggest takeaway. Like, I think you kind of answered the 3 points that people should be doing. Like, let's say they're listening to this and they've already kind of like been through the acute phase, but just to kind of zoom out even more, if you are in that acute phase, you should be proactive. I think that's the key thing. It's like starting to move your body. And if you are past that 30 days and you're listening to this and your kid has symptoms still that are present 3 or 4 months later, or even 3 or 4 years later, now that's where a program like the Concussion Fix can help guide you through, okay, so where is the obstacle that's preventing them from getting better? And that's the big question mark. A lot of people don't really know where that is, and their doctors maybe sent you to a neurologist and the neurologist said everything's fine. So now you're at a loss of where things actually have gotten off the rails. And there's anxiety and depression. I think that's exactly the type of patient that, sorry, the type of member's question that we answered today was, they've already gone through the acute phase. But I just wanted to make sure that if you're listening to this and you are still in that immediate phase, right away get active. Anything else, Nikki, that we should talk about?
No, I think that covers everything. I was just thinking if you had like one sentence, super quick, to tell a parent who is trying to help their child as much as possible. Their heart is breaking, seeing them in pain, and you just want to help them. But for all the reasons we just went over, what would be one thing that you want parents who are listening to walk away with?
I would say support, but you can't do.
Mhm.
It's not a sentence. It's a collection of words. but but you can support them and you want to encourage them to take action, but you can only do so much. Like, they have to do it and you can't do it for them.
Yeah. I like the word empowerment. I really be focusing on trying to empower your kid with knowledge, with the right tools. But again, you can't do the tools for them. They have to go through the discomfort, and that is the rub in concussion recovery. You often have to feel discomfort and be comfortable with not feeling always have the lowest symptoms. So you have to challenge some of that. And that is really hard for a parent because they want obviously the best for their kid and they don't want to see them suffer. And some of this, they have to actually fail and find those kind of like points, so those thresholds for their kid to actually get better. Don't do it for your kid. You have to allow them to do it. So empower them, in the right ways. And sometimes that means just connecting them with the right people and then getting out of the way. And that often is how we have to progress. So yeah,
Awesome.
great question. And hopefully that helps all the parents out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everyone for listening to the Concussion Fix podcast. Remember, recovery is possible and you're not alone. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Concussion Fix podcast. We hope you found today's episode helpful and that it gave you a little more clarity, hope, and confidence on your road to recovery. Remember, every step you take matters, no matter how small it may seem. If you feel that you could use a little more support on your healing journey, check out the Concussion Fix program. Just visit concussiondoc.io or simply type Concussion Fix into Google and read some of the reviews from people who've already walked this path. With over 3,000 success stories and an average symptom reduction of nearly 50% in just the first few weeks, it might just be the help you need to break through. Thank you again for listening. If you found value in this episode, please share it with someone you think could benefit, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a session. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay curious, and continuously remind yourself that recovery is possible.